What's up, guys? I'm EJ. I'm joined by Kendall, back with another set of NBA draft grades here. We're doing the Northwest Division. Kendall, let's start with the Minnesota Timberwolves. They had the number one pick in this draft. It was much talked about pick because everybody talked about nobody wanted that pick and how much the Timberwolves were desperately trying to trade out if they could possibly find a team to give them a good ransom to get it. That did not happen. So they ended up taking Anthony Edwards at number one. They traded 17 for Ricky Rubio and what ended up being eventually Leandro Balmero at 23. They had some maneuvering with the Knicks, but not getting all that the details. But and eventually ended up being Balmero, who was the 23rd pick. And then also Jaden McDaniels at 28. He was also a guy they got. That was in the trade with the Thunder. I gave the Northwest Division Timberwolves a B plus here. I thought that this was a pretty good draft. Obviously, Anthony Edwards, number one. That's the guy I would have taken. You know, he was probably the second or third best player on my board, but I think that the Wiseman thing didn't make sense for Timberwolves given you have Karl-Anthony Towns. So I was totally fine with them going with Edwards at number one. Am I worried about him not liking basketball? Am I worried about the shot selection? I mean, he's not a perfect player. You know, he wouldn't be number one in a lot of other drafts, but at the same time, given this is the draft that he's in, I think that there was no other option. The guy is a freight train going to the basket. The guy has NBA level athleticism, NBA level moves, NBA level pull up game. All of it just needs refining, and you know you hope you get a good enough coaching staff, you put around good enough guys, and you get the best out of him. So I'm fine with that pick. Bringing back Ricky Rubio, you know, give them some more depth at point guard. They desperately needed depth at point guard. Something I mentioned in our video we did on them in the draft war room series. You know, not sure there were some good guards around in this draft in the late first round, even second round. But you know, Rubio probably next year is probably better than the guys that they have now. So I get him being your backup to Russell. That's a pretty good backup. And then Balmero, one of my favorite players in the draft.
Yeah.
I had a very weird mix of emotions when I heard the Knicks drafted him because I was like, this is absolutely not what they need, but I love this guy, so I don't know what to make of this. Then the trade to the Timberwolves made a lot more sense because, as I said also in that video, they need some scorers on the wing. You know, that was going to be an issue. We don't know what Malik Beasley is going to be. The guy is Balmero, to me, just a Tasmanian devil going to the basket and also a tough defender. So good pick there. And I thought Jaden McDaniels, 28. I can't really hate that value. The guy was all world coming into college. Showed that maybe he probably in a perfect world probably should have done another year at college. But still, that 6'10", 6'11" guy who can handle and shoot, that's who everybody's looking for. There's a chance McDaniels could be really good. So I'm fine with them taking a flyer on him. Considering the first two guys in Rubio, I think will play for them and be in their rotation. You could take a flyer on McDaniels. So overall, Rosas' first draft of the Timberwolves, I thought he did a great job.
Yeah, I'm gonna give the Timberwolves an A- here. Anthony Edwards was my number one player. Was number one player on my board. A little bit by default, like you mentioned, it's not a great draft, and he's the closest thing. You know, you squint and you kind of see a number one pick kind of talent a little bit. Obviously, the Michigan State game is the obvious thing people point to when you talk about his upside, his talent level. Him nuking them for 33 points in the second half. Showed you obviously his talent level out in Maui, but you know there are some concerns. You know I did not like the comments that he made, but you know again by default, you know who else were you taking here? I mentioned maybe trading down for Obi Toppin, but if they were content, Obi Toppin I don't think he's a better prospect than Anthony Edwards. If they wanted to pick the best player in the draft, then to me it's Anthony Edwards. And he gives you kind of a replacement for Malik Beasley, and gives you some real scoring punch, which they need talent. You know, they need talent. And to me, bringing in guys like Balmero and Jaden McDaniels continues that talent, that talent influx that they certainly need. And you know, McDaniels, if you would have told me or if you would have told the T-Wolves coming into the season, you're going to end up with McDaniels and Edwards. I mean, wow. You want to talk about, talent. You know, it didn't end up that way, obviously, because McDaniels went 28. But still, I mean, Edwards and McDaniels is a dynamic duo coming into Minnesota. And again, you bring in Balmero.
Yeah, I would have said that. I would have said that happened. You would have traded Cat. It's the only way.
Yeah, I was like, wow. So Cat's in where is he? In Phoenix. We got the Phoenix trio with him and Russell going on. I mean, how'd you get those guys? So, obviously it's exciting, but then also you get Rubio, and then you have Balmaro. So there's a little bit of international flair there. Rubio's coming home, so I like the draft. I like the draft. It's a little risky having guys like Edwards and McDaniels. I mean, this could really be a train wreck. So I can't go A or A plus, but the talent is there, and you just gotta hope. I think it was Jay Williams said on the telecast that they need to get some vets around Edwards and Cat and Russell. But to me, I'm like, Cat and Russell should be the vets. These guys have been in the league for now 5 years. These guys are played in the playoffs. I understand the concern about like Edwards needs vets around him. Hopefully, Russell and Towns are mature enough at this point in their careers to really be great influences on these guys. And I think they have matured. If you've heard them recently speak, they sound like guys that are really focused on winning a championship. A lot of stuff has happened to these guys. So I'm excited for what's the future for Minnesota.
Yeah, shout out to Carl Anthony Towns. Obviously, loss of his mother was devastating and tragic, and I want to make sure we send out a shout out to him, especially. I know he's going through a tough year. I'm happy we'll get to see him get back on the court this year. Um, Portland Trailblazers, Kendall. They were at number 16. They traded that pick and Trevor Ariza. That 16 pick, by the way, ended up being Isaiah Stewart, and a future first for Robert Covington. They also then in the second round drafted.
Rocco.
In the second round, they also had drafted C.J. Ellaby from Washington State. This was so far the lowest grade I'm giving. I'm giving them a D. This was not a good night to me for the Portland Trailblazers. I get Covington. They needed a player like Covington, and he's better than Ariza, so I got that aspect of it. I didn't understand 2 first-round picks, particularly 16. The way this draft set up and the way the guys that were falling. That's not the kind of This is not the kind of draft I would have wanted to give up 16 for what the Blazers needed. I thought that he could have got a guy Pressure Chua, could have got I mentioned Sadiq Bey. There were some guys there that I think could have fit, and they gave up not only this year's first round pick but next year's first round pick. That I just cannot understand, so I cannot co-sign that. CJ Ellaby, they like shooting. When you're playing guys like McCollum and Lillard, those guys are gonna bring a lot of gravity to the defense. You need guys that can stretch the floor. Ellaby has the reputation as a shooter. Didn't shoot the ball great last year. So then I look at that and say, okay, well, were there guys who maybe were more proven as shooters? Maybe Sam Merrill or someone like that. So, it
The
wasn't.
War was what, one pick after?
Yeah, no, I mean the War. I mean that's to
One
me
pick
that's
before?
yeah I don't know if you get ahead of him, but like I don't know. I just didn't do it for me, and nothing they did. So lowest grade I've given so far a D for the Portland Trailblazers.
Um, I'll go D plus. I won't be as mean as EJ.
Oh boy, going out on a limb there.
Yeah, I'm one of these nice teachers, one of these nice
Jesus
professors that gives
Christ.
you the. I will be so mean. I'll give him a D plus. I mean, the Rocco move. It's a win now move. I'm not as bullish on the Blazers' upside this season. I'm not to say they can't compete, but I don't know if Rocco is helping them beat the Lakers. But I don't know. You never know. An injury to somebody could change anything. We saw with the Raptors. People didn't think the Raptors could compete, and then LeBron, leaves, and Durant gets hurt, and then all of a sudden now, Klay Thompson gets hurt, and now the Raptors are champions. So sometimes things break a certain way. You can compete, but to me, like you said, the value at 16, I would have liked to have seen them use those picks to maybe move up. Could they have gotten high enough to get Denny Avdia or somebody? Somebody been a little more explosive to really help you next season. The CJ Ellaby pick, he's a local guy, out of the Seattle kid. He's a big Brandon Roy guy, obviously. He's a Seattle guy, and Brandon Roy obviously a Blazer. So there's a little bit of a connection there, but I agree that the shooting is a little bit of a concern, but he shot on a high volume. He shot almost 7 threes a game. Washington State didn't have much going for them in terms of a roster, so obviously teams were keen on a guy like Ellaby, but I wasn't. I wouldn't have had. He would have been the top guy on my board at that point. I would have liked to have seen maybe a guy like Jay Scrub, or somebody with a little more upside.
Or give me an athlete like Cassius Stanley. I mean, I don't
Cassius
know.
Stanley would have been interesting, man.
Yeah,
Look, I think CJ Elleby fits the kind of guys they like, the kind of guys they've had. Could he end up carving out a role like a CJ McCollum or Gary Trent? And obviously he's not the talent McCollum is, but could he end up being another really good shooter, a Seth Curry, given the Seth Curry role that they had a couple years ago that they've lost? I could see that. I just feel like, look, Trent was already very good. Simons really needs to start getting into the rotation. Now you get another guard to fit into that mix, a little more of a wing, but I'm going D plus.
let's talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder. So bear with me, guys. There's a lot here. So the Thunder traded 25 and 28 for Alexei Pokusevski at 17. They also, before the draft, traded Danny Green, Terrence Ferguson for 34, which ended up they took Teo Maledon. They also got a 2025 first. They took on Al Horford's contract. Then they also traded 53 and a future second for Vic Krejci for 37. So, man, there's a lot, a lot to have there, a lot to piece together for the Thunder. Overall, I gave them a B plus. The Thunder are completely, obviously, in a complete rebuild mode. They're all about the future, and they're the kind of team and where they're at that can take the flyer on Alexei at this point. This is a different this is a different era for Thunder basketball. I think, before with the trades and the issues that they've had in the past, I think we've seen them try to stay in contention and stay in the mix with the other trades that they've done in the past, while also not obviously mortgaging their future. I think, this offseason they realized that time had ended, and now they're in a full transition. So, for Poku, man, I think you gotta love the opportunity of being in that player development system and having the chance to even get some burn because of the fact that the team does not have a lot of guys on it. So I think that's actually a really good fit for him. I think that getting that second round pick, for Danny Green and Terrence Ferguson, there's no way I thought that would have been Teo Maledon. Like that to me is the move that really if they were like around a B, that moves it to a B plus. Because wow, I mean, you got a guy who I think that maybe could be a starting point guard in the NBA in the second round, and you only had to give up Danny Green, who wasn't on your team, so you didn't really care about him, and Terrence Ferguson, who look, he's a little redundant considering the guys they've had, and we talked about they had all these run and jump guys. They need to get rid of some of these run and jump guys. So okay, one of the guys is gone. Get me a real point guard. You got Teo Maledon. So I like what they did. So it was a good draft day for Mr. Presti, who's stockpiling as many picks as possible. We saw some of the vision in I think how this all shook out on Thursday night. So Wednesday night rather. So good night for the Thunder. I give them a B plus.
Yeah, I'm a fan of this draft. I agree. I'm gonna go to B plus as well. I'm not the biggest Poku guy, but Poku for the Thunder, the way the Thunder really are not really they're not trying to compete next season. Just trying to build assets. Poku is certainly a guy that has an upside and is an asset. And to me, this is Sam Presti's Giannis project, and we'll see what happens with Poku. I don't think he'll end up being Giannis, but I mean, I didn't think Giannis would end up being Giannis. So it's hard for me to judge him too hard there. The Teo Maledon pick is the one that I'm really impressed with, because, like you said, the value of what you had to give up to acquire that player is tremendous. I mean, do you really feel like during the season, like, you could really trade Danny Green and Terrence Ferguson for a player like Maledon? I mean, it just feels like one of those situations where, again, the Sixers really jumped the gun there on that deal. Whoever traded.
Yeah, Sixers. They were doing anything they can to get rid of Al Horford. That's
yeah, exactly. And so for me, I'm impressed with that value. And then I like Vic Krejci a little bit as well. Obviously, he talked about he has an ACL injury, which is a little concerning. But he's a stash guy, big 6'7" playmaker. And you kind of feel like, look, three European prospects. Yeah, three European prospects. Three international guys are, in a couple years, like this team could, those guys could all be contributors for this team, and all in different timelines. If Krejci doesn't come over for a year or two, he could be on a rookie deal. I mean, this I think is actually a very smart draft, and then just the accumulation of assets that Sam Presti's put together last week is incredible. So I have to give them a ton of love, because yeah, I mean yeah, they'll be in the Kate Cunningham sweepstakes, but there's nothing wrong with that. So a local guy, Oklahoma State, I'm sure they'll be very excited to take Kate Cunningham next year.
let's
Go
talk about
Pokes.
let's talk about the Utah Jazz. So the Jazz at 27 drafted Kansas big man Udoka Azubuike. They also traded a future second for Elijah Hughes at 39. Okay, only the second time in this series I'm giving an A+ to the Utah Jazz.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I think this is a phenomenal draft. First of all, Udoka Azubuike, man, you just feel like is this Rudy Gobert all over again. We know Gobert lost a lot of time at the five, but as we mentioned on our series previously in the War Room, their front court depth is awful. They've already moved on from Ed Davis. They already moved on from Tony Bradley. He was in that trade for I think he was in that trade for Elijah Hughes, um, but yeah, I mean their front court depth was a bit abysmal, and the idea that you're gonna have Gobert come out of the game, and you bring in another 7 foot crazy long beast in the paint who has shown a ability to be a defensive anchor, and also has already a pretty solid post game, a great athlete, crazy vertical leap. I mean, to me, the Jazz have already developed that kind of player. You get the feeling they'll figure it out again with Azubuike, and I'm giving them the plus comes. That would have been the A, but the plus comes from Elijah Hughes, because that to me, that's when you talk about that's good GMing by Lindsay. That's targeting specific guys who fit what you do in the second round, and are high talent guys, because Hughes I already thought was really underrated in this draft. One, the guy is a shooter; he can score, but also his playmaking is really good. One of the better playmakers at the two guard spot. And this Jazz offense, as anybody watches Jazz know, all these guys handle the ball pretty much 1 through 4. Maybe Gobert doesn't handle it as much, but even sometimes he's even asked to do dribble handoffs and things like that. So you need as many ball handlers and passers as you can. And Hughes is an excellent ball handler and an excellent passer. The only reason why Hughes to me isn't a first round pick is the consistency. And it's like to me he has a first round kind of game, but it's coming at these guys' neck with that kind of assertiveness that you need to come up with every night. I think that the Jazz will to figure that out. You play against Donovan Mitchell practice a couple days, you're gonna learn. You got to come with a certain intensity. I think that that's a
Yeah.
great fit for the Utah Jazz. So yeah, I gave them an A+. I think there's a chance they got two players late in the first round and in the second round that will actually be players for them in the future.
Yeah, Dennis Lindsey has built a reputation as one of the better drafters in the league at this point. The Mitchell pick really solidified that. Walt Parent, obviously, who's with the Knicks now, obviously also, developed that reputation in Utah as well. But I really like the Azubuike pick, and again, because of what Lindsey did with Mitchell and some of these other guys, you kind of look at it and say, was there something that he's seeing that maybe other people aren't? Because I mentioned Azubuike as a guy that I loved coming into this draft, and the guy just a mountain of a man. I mean, we talk about the Braun Strowman of this draft. It's Udoka Azubuike. The guy is huge.
Wrestling fans
And
will love that.
yeah, I know, man. Yeah, I know it's a line. What a line. But Azubuike is a huge player. If there's anybody that can make this player work, it feels like it's Quinn Snyder and what he does with Gobert. Um, and long term, people have questions. How long is Gobert going to be there? Again, it seems like Gobert, will be there next season, but he's not the youngest player in the league. His contract's coming up in a little bit, so they may have their big man of the future as well on Azubuike. And then Elijah Hughes. I mean, the questions. I think there are some questions in general about players from Syracuse. Defensively, they've always had struggles. Coming from the zone, and we saw Malachi Richardson. not really do much. And Tyus Battle came out, and he really didn't do much. So there are questions about Syracuse wings, but I do echo those fits that you mentioned. So I'm gonna go B plus with the Jazz. I think this is a nice draft for the Jazz. I think Azubuike, really good pick. Hughes, we'll see. You're hiring him a little bit more than me, um, but overall, good. I think good value altogether.
Let's wrap this up with the Denver Nuggets. So the Nuggets had Zeke Naji at 22, and then that's a big man from Arizona. And then they traded a future first to get back in the first round and took the Texas guard, played over in Australia, R.J. Hampton at 24. I'm giving the Nuggets a B for this draft. It's funny, we never got a chance to talk about Najee, but I really did feel like Najee was someone that was going to be perhaps a steal. I thought maybe in the second round. 22, I will admit, is high, but I'm not going to kill the pick for 22 because to me, this was a fit pick. This was, we don't have enough rebounding, we don't have enough energy around the basket, we don't have enough rim running. Who can we get that can give us that? And a lot of the big men that were left for them really don't provide what I think Najee brings. I think Arturo's a little bit more of an offensive player. I think to me he fits exactly what they need, because Jokic not the greatest athlete, not the greatest rim protector. Now Najee's not a great rim protector either because he's he's only about 6'9" ish, but Michael Porter has no interest in defense or rebounding, so they needed somebody like this. So I liked the idea. Every time I watch Arizona play, most of the time trying to watch Nico Mannion, this guy always stuck out. He plays so hard. He's really good. He's so hard. He plays.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, I know. He ended up getting drafted to have Nico Mannion, but the guy plays so hard. He's so good around the basket. He competes. So I really thought this was a really good pick at 22, even though it was a little high probably for a lot of people. And then Audrey Hampton trading back into the first round. Here we go again. It's the Denver Nuggets taking a flyer on a huge name. Maybe the guy didn't do what you thought he was going to do for whatever reason in college or, in his 1 year out of high school. And here he is. Now he's on the Denver Nuggets. I've never been the biggest RJ Hampton fan from what I saw from Australia. But now I'm a little nervous that the Nuggets have him because the Nuggets seem to look through the forest, through the trees on some of these young guys and figure out, hey, what you guys maybe missed out on, we see the star potential and why the guy was so highly heralded. I've seen him do it too often. So, man, I got to say that was a good move because I'm going to trust him in their system. I think him learning from Jamal Murray will be a lot. I think Murray has taken a next step, not just as a player, but just as a leader. So I actually am really excited to see him playing under Murray. So, man, Nuggets, good job. B.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'll go. I'll go B. I'll go B plus. I'll go B plus because the Najee pick. Tim Connolly said before that. I actually texted you because remember I texted you before the draft because I had heard that Tim Connolly said that they he never drafts for need. He only drafts for best player available. And I don't know. I look at the Najee pick and I'm like, the Hampton pick I think was maybe a best player available talent pick. The Najee pick, I don't know if he was the highest player on my board at 22, but
no way, that's cap. That's cap, and I love Najee, but that's cap.
Yeah, and Tim Connolly's a great executive, So, but you have to kind of the GM say things behind closed doors differently than what they say, obviously, or in the media. But Najee, really, I agree, really good fit. The kid that's overachieved. He came in. He in high school, he's always been second billing. In high school, he played with Matthew Hurt on the AAU circuit, and a lot of people came to watch Matthew Hurt, and were like, a lot of schools like, who's this Najee guy? Arizona came calling, and Memphis was calling, and Duke was calling, and Kentucky was calling. He ends up going to Arizona.
Yeah, they're like, who he
Kansas
played for?
was calling. And then he goes to college, goes to Arizona. Not top billing. We talk about Nico Mannion, talk about Josh Green, and people come away like, who's the Najee freshman? This kid is one and done maybe. So you gotta love a guy like that who continues to overachieve, and so maybe he will outplay his draft expectations. With R.J. Hampton, again, just it's a talent pick, it's a swing shot in the dark, and they certainly hit on Michael Porter. They seem to be trending in the right direction with Bol Bol. Um, and R.J. Hampton, we don't know what the long term thing is with Monty Morris as a backup. He may end up getting a starter spot at some point with another team that wants to pay him. And also, you have guys like Will Barton and Gary Harris, which you talked about. That on the wings, they're not always there. The availability of those guys sometimes is in question. So you bring in a guard that can play the two a little bit. PJ Dozier's a free agent, which we talked about in the Roland video as well. So Hampton may end up getting minutes. He may not be a red shirt like Porter and Bol were, but this feels like a little bit. It does feel like politics because Hampton's agent or whatever you want to call him, handler is Mike Miller. And Mike Miller, obviously, was a Denver Nugget very recently, the last team he played for, and he has a good relationship with Tim Connolly. So you do wonder if that was a little bit of a go get my guy kind of situation. But regardless, I don't think it's a bad pick, for the Denver Nuggets to have a guy with the talent of RJ Hampton. If it pops like it did for Bol and Michael Porter, then it's just another great trade asset, and it puts them one step away from being able to get a James Harden or get a Bradley Beal, whoever is the next guy to come available, without having to trade Jamal Murray, which has always been the thing they don't want to do.
Of course, yeah. I thought it was a really, really solid work by the Denver Nuggets. What do you guys think about the Nuggets? What do you guys think about the rest of this team? Make sure you give a comment in the comment section or your grades for some of these teams. And if you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. We'll wrap it up with the Southwest Division coming up. So thank you guys for checking it out. For Kendall, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.